Can I just, a show of hands of anyone that's been at any of my kind of previous talks or clinics about anything? Just put your hand up. Okay. This will not be a repeat, so that's good. You've probably seen, I've been around the country a lot, doing a lot of different clinics and talking to coaches about what we're trying to do with the national team. And I've talked about it being a three-phase project, and phase one being an information gathering. So I was going around the country watching games at the boys and girls levels. I was at the PDP in Edmonton. I was at CPL games, academy matches, club matches, League One, MLS, like just trying to get a sense of what's been going on in the country, and then asking a lot of questions, like, what do you need from a national team coach? What do you need from a national team program? What do you think about a style of play or creating a DNA inside of the football and what we're doing in the country? And I've gotten mixed responses on different things, but for the most part, I've seen a group of people that are interested and engaged in what we're doing with the national team, and then an interest to see a little bit more of the details. Then part of phase two was a little bit of showing people tactically what our playing model is and what we think are the important principles and concepts of what we're trying to do with the national team. And in the process there, and I'll say this again today, one of the things that I don't want to do is stand here and tell you that I think I have all the answers and that this is the only way to play. And I often say that I grew up in the US, and we had people with foreign accents coming into our country for years and telling us what we're supposed to do with our game and our country and our sport, and that used to piss me off. So I'm not here to do that, right? But I am here to try to say that in that respect, some of the things that we try to do with the national team, I think are vital for any type of style of play, and that I think it's really important in modern football to be more dynamic, right? To be thinking about how to use pace and speed and power in the game. And I said, I was lucky and I was fortunate to coach in the Premier League, to coach in Champions League. And the impression you get when you're on the touchline in those games is not the elegance and technical ability of what's happening in the game. It's the speed and the power, right? And when the game comes alive, you cannot believe how quickly players can think, how quickly players can act, react, and that's the standard for me of what the game is at the highest level. And obviously there's a lot of nuances in there for all the things that we know as coaches. With that being, and then phase three is a little bit of like, okay, how do we do that? The methodology, what's the training like? What's the loading like? So I did something yesterday, which was the first time that I started to introduce a little bit of like, in a work week, how do we put together our training cycle? What kind of things are we trying to emphasize from a physical standpoint, mental standpoint, tactical standpoint? And then what does that mean as we put it into our playing model? So today what I'm going to show you is basically our attacking transition ideas and what we try to achieve, how we try to arrange ourselves, and what our attacking transition looks like. Okay, so go ahead, Shane. So look, one of the reasons why, in terms of just like breaking it down, I go with transition is because 54% of goals in the game are scored from transition moments. That includes the 32, 33%, whatever you want to consider it, from set pieces, right? So if you just go run a play, now you're talking about this being a 2/3 or over 2/3 amount of the goals are coming out of transition, which I think we all understand. One of the fundamental principles of Red Bull football was that you're most likely to score a goal within 10 seconds of winning the ball. So this idea of pressing and turning pressing into scoring chances and opportunities was paramount and at the core of everything that we were doing as a club, as a philosophy, as a team, right? So we try, and I think of the game more as two phases. A lot of people talk about 4 phases. I consider it pressing to attacking transition and ball possession to defensive transition. And obviously those phases even blend together. But when I say that, so much of what we try to do tactically is arrange ourselves in pressing situations so that if we win the ball, we're immediately ready to get into transition. And if we don't win the ball and there's another pass that gets made, that we're all arranged to again press again and swarm again. And everything that we try to do in our tactical model is about preparation for whatever happens next. Throw in, goal kick, corner kick, but even more importantly maybe, winning the ball, losing the ball, completed pass, second ball situation, like that. We're always thinking about what are our connections on the pitch, and then how are we more prepared than the opponent to be ready for whatever's next, right? That is at the core of the strategy of what we try to do. We use this term, the net. So if we're defending here, so I should probably put goalies are soccer players too, okay? Just so that you guys know. We basically describe the net as drawing triangles in the team, right? And what it is it's a visualization for our players to understand their distances and what their relationship is with all of our teammates. And when they're on the pitch, like I think it's a helpful visualization for them to know, like if the opponent has the ball over here, and these guys, and we're all shifting and there's too much space, then they can kind of visualize, I've got to stay connected. And obviously, it's dependent on, you have to include the spacing and positioning of where the opponent is, but we're really focused on how we are connected with each other, and compactness is a major theme with us. And I actually, we're not going to talk a lot about ball possession today, but I think it's even a factor in ball possession. So that we're spread out enough in moments where we have the ball, but we're always close enough that if we lose it, we're ready to be better positioned to go and win it back. So again, all of this is about the thought process of being more prepared than the opponent. And then even what we went through yesterday was a little bit of how do you create the training methods so that the behaviors inside the tactics wind up helping them, so that if you can make the behaviors better and the tactical positioning and strategy better, then ultimately you can be better positioned and more prepared than the opponent at all moments. That is the goal, okay? Okay, Shane. We're gonna go through some terminology first. And by the way, when I first took over the team, go ahead, next one. When I first took over the team, what I did is I gave them 17 vocabulary concepts or phrases of what we do against the ball and into transition, and then I gave them 7 the next day, and then we worked on it on the pitch, and the next day I gave them 17 on ball possession and counter-pressing and defensive transition, and then we went and worked on it on the pitch. And we tried to be really, like, this is one of the things I learned from the Germans. Vocabulary, vocabulary, vocabulary. Detail, detail, detail. And they changed my mind. It was like an explosion when I started to learn the ways in which you can describe the game. And this is one of the keys of being a coach, or anything, any system in life, is how do you make complicated things simple? And that's what I learned about the vocabulary. So I didn't even start with the team about, okay, we're going to play a 4-4-2, we're going to play this, we're going to do that. I was like, here are some essential building blocks of what we need to be good at and understand how they all fit together, okay? So that's a little bit what I'm going to take you through today. Let's see how good. We did a pretty good job with the team. We'll see if I can do a good job with you guys. Talked about the net. Closing is like what I just talked about, closing the net. So even if we're attacking the ball and the opponent, right, defensively on this side, that we're always thinking about closing, okay? If it's a long ball, that we're always thinking about closing. And we want to be better, again, this is a way of being better positioned than the opponent for whatever happens next. Think about on this side, if we're pressing the ball, right, and we win it, part of the aspect of closing means that the opponent is still in build-up phase, right? And they don't have the ability to close their team fast enough so that if they do get out of our pressure and come more into these spaces, then all of these players are still ready to attack and swarm the ball. But maybe even more importantly, especially for today, is when we win it and we want to play the first pass forward, these players are free from defenders. And then they can start to turn and get out in transition. Okay, so how everything we try to do tactically fits with both things. Are we winning the ball? Are we not? And when we win the ball, what's next? Okay? Heading the ball up the field is pretty simple. Like if we're pressing in these areas, right? And then they head the ball up the field, then we're closing and all our numbers are up here. So we don't want, if they play long balls, sometimes it's obvious you can play balls down into the defensive midfielders, but if you do that and you lose it, a lot of the times what you do is when teams play long balls, then they're closing and you're almost inviting yourself to be pressed versus heading the ball longer, numbers up the field, overplaying their pressure to close to the second ball. And then we even have something we call quick play. We're like, if I'm coming and Shane heads the ball and I'm a 6, the defensive midfielder, and I'm coming to the ball and I know there's pressure coming, a lot of times we just tell them to flick the ball. We call that quick play. Okay, we just tell them to flick the ball on. And then we know that everybody else is closing, and then those players are coming into gaps and they're ready to play quick combinations, and then we're already off and in transition. We have some good video examples of that. And then rest attack. Have you guys heard of rest defense?
Yep.
This is a core principle of what we do with the national team. And I'm not going into that right now. And I tell the players that we have to be the best team in the world at counter pressing and rest defense. And I always have a rest defense coach on the sideline. Rest defense is that when we're in possession of the ball, basically that we're marking their players so that if they win the ball and try to play out, that there's nowhere for them to go and that we're always ready to contain and control the opponent. That again is more possession phase. But if you think about that, what does rest attack mean? Anyone want to take a stab at rest attack? No, but close.
The moment we win possession, how our players are prepared for the taking position.
You're both not wrong, but you're both not right. Rest attack is the opposite of rest defense, right? It's that we want to be away and now make sure that if we win the ball that we're not standing next to defenders. Like it was interesting because when I watched, for example, in Edmonton, the rest defense was terrible, right? But at the same time, one striker would stand up the pitch and a lot of times just mark himself. And so then when they would win the ball, even though he wasn't even thinking about really marking him, all of a sudden the ball would turn over and he'd try to move and now that defender would be ready to deal with him and defend and win the ball back. So in the end, part of, again, this compactness is moving away from defenders so that when we win balls, we're ready to get out of transition. So that rest attack is the opposite of rest defense. Okay. Now, when we train, it's hard for our strikers to be good at rest defense or rest attack because we're so good at rest defense. But I find that when you create this kind of training where the players are always on top of every detail, it means that as we are within the game on top of the detail of all the things that we would want to do against us, that it just creates this rhythm of the game where everything is so tight and your spacing and your reactions and everything you do has to be on point and better. Always, they want to be good at rest defense, then I have to be even better. And they're going to be even better, then I have to be even better. And it's the challenge of what you create in training that forces them to always be thinking about how to be positioned better. It's like watching training, and even when we do 11v11 against each other is fantastic to see because it's a mental challenge on constantly trying to position yourself better than the opponent. So those are more about the preparation of transition, okay, which is the start of the pressing and then how we close the pressing and how we prepare ourselves to get in transition. Then, Shane, please go on, and now we're going to get into more of what the transition themes are. So, first pass forward, I think is pretty clear. Like, even I had Dave Nutt, we had a talk yesterday, and he's like, well, we need to think about for coaching courses, what do we talk about as the most important themes and details? And like, look, we're going to have that discussion, but probably the two first ones that I'm going to say to him is, in coaching courses, we need to really emphasize more sprinting in games, right? And when we win the ball, that we play the first pass forward. In the 17s, both boys and girls in Edmonton, and the 15s, both boys and girls, what I saw almost the entire tournament were two phases of the game, but not my two phases. I saw possession, and I saw defensive organization. And so what games look like is the team would have a goal kick, and Team A would start to pass the ball around and think about what their connections were. Team B would be a little bit organized and shifting back and forth, and then Team A would try to play a little combination, and they would lose the ball, and Team B would win it, and they'd turn around and they'd play the ball straight back to the goalkeeper, and then Team A would get back into a block, and Team B would get into possession phase. And that game, in all of the games I watched, 17s, 15s, boys, girls, repeated itself over and over and over again. So there we were, if we're talking 54% of the goals are scored in transition, I think none in that tournament were scored in transition, right? So trying to just create a little bit more of an understanding of how dynamic football can work, right? So development player would be what we would consider when we win the ball here and when these players are closing, that these players they're the transition development players, right? And so part of their job is to be ready to press and win the ball from the weak side, but as soon as it's not when we win the ball, as soon as they anticipate that we're going to win the ball, they're already looking, where am I, what's my spacing? And we tell a lot of times that when we win the ball to play a blind diagonal pass. In German, they call it the Schiedsrichter pass, the referee pass. Because the referee, as they're moving diagonally across the field, is almost always in the position to play diagonally. And if we pass to the Schiedsrichter, then in theory, our opposite side midfielder has closed and put himself in the space, and then as we're winning the ball, he's already ready. Do I need to play quick play and start to move and run? Can I catch it, turn, and start to attack? Right? But these players then ahead of the ball become the development players, and their awareness of where they are and what they're going to do next is important. Diagonal to diagonal. So if we win the ball here, and we play here, often the net, you can be thinking about how strong is the outside fullback joining in, but often what happens is, and even teams are taught to do this diagonal recover into these spaces, and often the next best place to hit them is where you won the ball from, right? So we often want to play blind diagonal, know where we are, ideally turn and start sprinting, and from where the ball just was won, we want to be sprinting hard and here, and how much can we create 3v2s, 4v3s, 5v4s, 5v3s, right? And then we start to think about how we're going to attack the back line. But the diagonal to diagonal sprint, like if you come, and maybe I think I'm doing a session later, maybe you guys will be there. I would say sprint is the word I say the most in training. Go maybe, but sprint. Like sprint! Like not 95%, not 98%, 100%. And again, if I go back to Edmonton, if I talk about the CPL, if I talk about MLS, not enough teams are dynamic enough and fully sprint at the right times, right? Identifying important moments and making sure that you have 11 players with the goalkeeper connected as well. Whatever we're doing, if we're pushing up and we're attacking, if we're dropping, that every player is ready to sprint to deal with these moments. And then 100 to 70 is a term that, it's a term that if when we're pressing, we're at like 100 miles an hour and we're trying to move and close and win balls, and that when we win balls and play forward, that we want to almost slow ourselves down a little bit to 70. Right? And I say to them, it's actually not physically, because physically you still need to be running at 100%, but in your head, you just have to have the ability to slow down a little bit, have a little bit of poise and composure, so that you can have the quality to make the last pass or the pass that leads to the last pass. Right? So if they rush and shoot and the ball goes over, I'm like 100 to 70, 100 to 70. Relax, make the last action, don't slow down, right? But just in your head. Another phrase I use all the time, if we're in training, play fast but don't rush. Play fast but don't rush. And as we crank training up, that's the whole goal is to create speed of play, speed of thought, speed of play, speed of thought. But they're slowing down in their heads and they're able to execute what they need to in order to be effective in the game. Okay? So 170, vertical is clear. Stay on the ball. So when that development player catches the ball, and if they're dropping, obviously quickly he has to identify, is a pass directly on so that we can penetrate, right? But what often is the case, and we play a lot of opponents, especially internationally, where they don't build in enough. It's hard internationally to build in full sophistication, but they'll drop off. And so, in those moments, then you want to stay on the ball, but with speed, and then be ready to see if you can draw someone out, seek the 2v1, okay? And then find a way to slip somebody on the line at the last time, and then every time we slip the ball, we want somebody running hard at the far post. And we say, especially in these moments, but in general in the game, we want to score 80% of our run and play goals as tap-ins. Tap-ins. In possession, we want to move, attack spaces in behind, and always have guys running in the box, running hard, winning the race to the first post, winning the race to the second post, playing early balls across, tapping. And certainly in transition, this is what we want to achieve. So we'll show some videos on that. Half lane is just what we call, so different people call it different things, but we call this space in between the 6 and the 18 on both sides, the half lane. So we often want to, like I was just saying, let's say we're creating a 2v1 over here, that we can release a player into the half lane here, and the ball's coming across and we're winning the race to get it to the tap-in. But if you look at the Bundesliga last year, and you looked at where the heat zones of the assists area, they're like all right here, and then balls across, balls cut back, whatever. And then one of the Montreal guys said that Laurent Courtois calls it the assist zone in Montreal. So I mean, I think people all know this, but I think the assist zone's pretty cool too. So there. Early ball behind the opponent, that's that flat ball across, always running to the first post. Crossing rules are we always have to have someone first post, second post, penalty spot. Okay, the crossing rules are for transition and for run of play. We try to not cross the ball from outside the 18, right? Pat calls those counter crosses, because the goalkeeper comes and catches them and then they're off on the run. We want to be attacking the half lane, attacking spaces inside the box, and the percentage of scoring goals from crosses from this space here is like 1.3% versus 7 point something percent. Right? So obviously just by money ball, it should get it there and then score. Okay? Good, and I mentioned tap in already. Okay? I think, and again, we'll show a series of plays that some of these are from our team in Canada, some are from my team with Leeds, some are Salzburg, some are Leipzig, I think, but in general now I kind of try to put some videos together that can show you how all the pieces fit together. And again, I did include in there, like, because you could argue that when you're in an attacking transition that you also need to get into space for counter pressing, and you need good rest defense, because if you lose it, there's a term called Nachlaufen in German, which means as you're in transition, that specifically the defensive midfielders are sprinting with the transition, just because there are times when you're in transition, you try a pass or they defend a dribbler and they lose the ball, and they want the sixes always there to win in the transition moment. So, like I said, they all kind of blend together, and the key is that the compactness and the positioning and the reactions and the behaviors are always better than the opponent, right? But I think through the video scenes you'll be, and you can kind of let it go, Shane. Can you turn off the volume? I think just on the computer, can you press? Or you got it? You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. So there's the net, okay? So that's, again, look how compact we are. And we have different times where we want to press up higher, or press in different spaces, and we have different determination for that. But again, the visualization of the team, and what that does is it gives them freedom and confidence that if they press the ball, that they're never alone, right? That they can always go and really attack the ball. One of the things I never say is don't get beat, because we want it built in that the players are super aggressive to go. This we call swarming, right? That we want to really be closing. And now pause, look. They'll draw arrows. Go ahead, sorry, Shane. All right, but this is the point. So you see, it's a dual purpose. We're closing the team because we're ready to help, that if we get beat out of the space, that the next player is ready to help compress and win balls in that space. And we're already away from defenders. They're still in build-up phase, right? And most teams aren't. In this phase right here, I would say to our team, hey, as we start to lose the ball, you have to start to get and defend and rest defense. You have to start to get in this position so they can't get out of transition. But for us, they don't do it well enough. The players are conditioned to play diagonally and forward right away. And then we'll let this run a little bit, but you'll see how all the pieces kind of fit together, right? So now we've created an advantage, a numbers advantage. We're moving up the pitch to make sure we're We're trying to run in the box for early balls behind. We're in good rest defense position, and he steps in front so we win it. Then we're even positioned to win second balls. Overload in the pitch, quick combinations, knowing where each other are, closing again, making sure they can't get out, running in the box, overloads, ready for second actions. How we missed that, I have no idea. All right? But, again, you can see that we're better prepared than the opponent. And that was the Venezuela game, the quarterfinal in Copa America. And that was the first game where, like 20 minutes in, I said to our staff on the bench, all right, now they get it. Now they get it. Now they get the pace that we're trying to play. They understand the concept. They understand how it all fits together. And we were dominant. We wound up finishing 1-1 in the match, but we were outstanding in this match. This was Mexico, all right? So often a strategy when we press is to play the ball long. So when he wins the ball, we want to cover, but then head it up the field. Pause. See that. If we play the ball back here, we're setting up to be repressed again. And if we're closing well from the front, if our behaviors and our tactical understanding is already good, then I can just blindly play a quick play ball, and already we beat all the pressure, and we're already out in transition, right? If he does that instead, I'm like, hey, look, play. We have players in the red zone ready to get into transition. And then if he's here and not there, I'm saying, come on, you have to come back. Every single position, the behaviors, the understanding of how everything connects is so important for everything to work simultaneously. Ideally, when players get the ball there, we want them to turn inside. We love to run in the deep. Here's another one. Second balls. Quick combinations. 100 to 70. Johnny David is fantastic. Now, all of a sudden, we've turned a second ball situation into a 4v3. And again, how do we miss it? Look at pause. So, look, Kyle Laren's not up here. Johnny David's not up here. We're pressing as a group. We're coming back so that we can make sure that we help deal with the spaces. These two guys are fantastic at closing with the team. They're two of the smartest strikers I've ever worked with, right? You'll almost never see these two standing up here. They're always back thinking about helping press, but they also know they don't want to be standing next to defenders. Our team has the fastest team I've ever had, right? And we don't want to be standing next to defenders. If we're in space, that's when we can really use our pace, right? So watch this play. Quick play, clever, sprinting, Kyle sprinting, Shaft sprinting. Again, how do we miss it? Right? But really good, clever, quick, fast, sprinting, running deep, running vertical, releasing the ball, getting out after the game. The goalkeeper does a good job, but still almost wound up getting a good goal out of that. So this is Leeds. So pause. Look at that. Great job, Shane. Perfect. Right? As soon as now the six, so there's a development player, and then there's the player winning the ball. I try to say to them that first pass forward often means that if you're really good, you know that you're going to win the ball and you're already in your first touch ready to play that ball forward, right? But this is all part of now the system of understanding. When we win the ball, don't play like in Edmonton and play the ball back and get in it. Now we have an actual advantage. How quickly can we see things forward, create a numbers advantage, and use our pace and athleticism to punish the opponent? Right? Again, that's not 95%, right? That's not 99%. That's 100%. 100%. And you'll see even when we run a lot of transition games in training, and that's why I'm yelling, sprint, sprint, all the way, sprint. Run as hard as you can. Don't wait, not 95. The ball's coming. Sprint, win the race to the box. Run through, and I tell them, if it gets to the half lane, that we're running through the goal. That we're not even stopping at the first post, that we are ready to run through the goal, that we're getting in front of the goalkeeper, like in all ways, we're not done sprinting, and from the back we're closing, sprint. And so as much as I even look at do we outrun the opponent, it's do we out-sprint the opponent. Sprint number and sprint distance, right? That's our goal every game. This one is actually a goal, believe it or not. So pause. Right? This is in Champions League with Salzburg. we wanted this center back to have the ball, and we wanted to attack the next pass from him. And if you'll see, when we press, we like to create a check mark in the midfield. We like these two strikers to be in a balanced position so that they're always helping deal with the 6. And then we like our back line to be high so that the space in the middle. But the idea is that when we win the ball in the middle, how quickly can we either play to a development player or directly vertically into the space behind? Because again, the opponent is stretched. So anytime we win the ball, it's the time to punish them. This is probably my favorite. I couldn't draw this up better. This is probably my favorite goal that I've ever coached. First pass forward, vertical run in the deep. That's a 3-second goal from winning it to scoring. And literally, if I had that on the board, I would go, okay, then we win the ball here, then we win the ball there, then we run there. You see that pause? You see Steph twice. Twice he looked. He knew the ball was coming, and twice he looked, and Schaff knew the diagonal position, right? So that it's all the preparation, the being 2 steps ahead of the game, everything's already in place. Right? Sprinting. Maybe he could play it across. We had a discussion after the game. Schaff, is that a shot? Was that a pass? This is a really good example against the U.S. We're pressing, we're closing the middle. Look at our compactness, right? Winning the ball, playing directly. Pause. Kyle didn't even look. He didn't even look. He knew that now the diagonal to diagonal theme means that we should have somebody sprinting into that space. There we go. That would have been an awesome goal. Another one. Almost. Pause here. Okay, look. Right there, so that's, what is that, 102 yards from goal maybe, let's say, or 100 and whatever. Look at Johnny David. Look at Schaff. They immediately see, now's the time. Anticipation and ready to sprint. Okay? Johnny, they recognize right here that we're in transition and now's the chance to score. Okay? They don't wait. Transition is whenever we win the ball, whatever space, and that we are better positioned and more ready to react. Schaff is sprinting, great ball. Johnny's already won the race. He scored the goal here. 100-70. Helps to have the best striker in Europe. This is an important one as well. Staying on the ball. So pause. Right there you have a 3v3. Okay? And it looks like, the job of the opponent is to try to keep things tight, and you would think, okay, we're going to run on the outside. We talk all the time about vertical. Attack vertically. Don't be satisfied with the outside shoulder of the defender. Find the spacing, sprint through the middle, and be ready to release the ball. So watch. Right now you pause. Right now you'd say, okay, he's probably going to receive the ball out here. And you'd be wrong. Watch. Vertical transition. Jurgen Klopp has a strategy that he wants his 3 players in transition to converge at the penalty spot. He wants them all to run through the middle, right, and not worry about getting balls out in the half lane. I'm not the same. I think still, like, we want to be vertical, but we want to run through. I always say converge at the goal and be ready for these balls and run through the goal and score tap in, slide in like this, but it's a similar kind of concept. Pause. Could he play back? Yeah, but high-level football is winning the ball, seeing things forward. Maybe it's too tight and there's nothing there, and then he can always play back. It's just like where I was saying when they catch the ball in the development position, they can always turn outside and know that they have somebody there, but the high-level thing to do is to turn inside and be vertical. The easier thing to do is to stay outside the defender when you're running. The high-level thing is to run vertically to goal, right? Trying to train the players to understand what are the most threatening options and how to execute them over and over and over. Play forward, closing the team, not laughing, and then pause. And in all these moments, this is where we want quick play, we want clever moments, we want heel balls to break down good opponents and good defenders. If you just play simply and everything that's in front of you, they can deal with that. But if you create creativity in the way you play, then the players feel free. Another thing I never say is don't lose the ball. Because then they lose their freedom. People say a lot in German, it's mutig spielen. They say play brave. But if you're telling your players, don't lose the ball, don't get beat, they can't play brave. They have to always protect. And one of the reasons, the first reason is by being clever and creative is how you break down opponents. And the second is, we're going to go win it back with counterpressing. Our behaviors and positioning are better than the opponent. Right? The system creates freedom. Right? And the players feel that. They feel the freedom and they feel the power of using their pace and using their athleticism and overwhelming the opponent because we're always better prepared. And most of these are not fun to watch because somehow we don't score. Right? Getting into attack, creating the 2v1, running vertically in space behind. Right? Go back on that again. It would have been easy for that attacker to think, oh, I'm going to stay 5 yards out. But that's not the punishing play. That's the one that hurts. There are times where you still need a little bit of space because the defenders may be too tight, but still creating the eagerness for players to run vertically and play vertically behind. Forward, right? Ready to attack, ready to sprint, finding ways to create 2v1s. And that maybe it could be a pass across, but still you get the sprinting, the creating 2v1s, the running into the box. I mean, in almost all of these, hang on 1 second, Shane. I haven't pointed out every time, but in almost every one of them, we're 4v3 in the box. We're 3v2 in the box. Right? We've pressed not to gain possession, we've pressed to score, and we have an eagerness and a readiness to sprint and beat them to the box and score an easy goal. 54%. This one I want to show the relationship of these two strikers. So we talk a lot about winning the race to the first post. So there we attack the half lane in transition and pause. Right now, these two players know that the goal is to be scored at the first post. And this player is Hee-Chan Wong. He starts to fade away and bring the defender, and then he's ready to run in and get the timing right. And that's Holland, and he plays the ball across. First post goal makes it look easy. But it's all, they both understand in that moment that the objective is to set up to score at the first post. Right? That looks so simple, but again, these are things that we work on in training. These are talking points and principles that are important to us. And if he runs to the second post and he doesn't get there, we say, hey, set up and get to the first post. That's the objective. So then this is the crossing rules. So we try to create these rotations in possession and try to get into the half line, right? So there's 8. So keep going, and when it goes to C, you can stop. So pause. So we will say, look, we always want to have the first runner prepared to run to the first post. And then dependent on what the opponent presents with their back line, so if it's a 5 back line, or if it's a 3 back line, then the second post is almost always open. Right? If it's a 5, then usually the cutback ball is better because they have more on the back line. So we'll then often say, okay, this match, option A is more a cutback ball to the penalty spot. This option A is more a chip ball to the second post. But we still always have to have that run to the first post. Why?
Create space and deep.
Bring defenders. Bring defenders. Right? Usually and the goalkeeper, by the way. And the goalkeeper. Right? The way to that first post run, it usually is the best place to score, and it usually brings 2 or 3 defenders and a goalkeeper, which opens up free space in other spaces. So the first player has to always be prepared to get to the first post and sprint to win the race. It's against Argentina in the first game. And then we also build in that if we have a throw-in principle that if the ball goes out, we want to take the ball, we want to take the throw within 3 seconds. Sprinting, first post, beats, pause. 2v, 3v6, 3v with the goalkeeper 7. But because we're running hard, we're sprinting into space, we know that we're getting to the first post, we win the goal. So now we have some training, there's some more training in here too now. But these kinds of passes, I couldn't believe Ollie passed it, but these kind of passes across the goal are so vital for us. Here's one from a game against Suriname, right? Win it, forward, running into the deep, sprinting into the deep, first post, second post, early ball behind. That defender was in a position where, do I deal with the first post, do I deal with the second post? If Johnny doesn't run in there, then he can just stay in the second post. You go to the next one. So, yeah, go back. One of the things we try to say is, backwards. Can you go, click it, one more back, there. So this is kind of this is kind of like the rhythm that we want to create in the game. So if you think about the 2 phases of the game, okay? We want to be compact, we want to close the middle, we want to be ready to sprint and launch and attack and pressing together. We want to make the last step and attack the ball together, swarm, be an overload in our pressing situations. Then when we win balls, we want the first pass forward, often the diagonal 10, and then we want to be off on the sprint, find a way to make the last pass across the goal, tap in, or if we miss it, then we come back, we're compact, and we start it all over again. So against the ball into transition, we want to repeat this cycle over and over and over and over and over and over. And we want to do it faster and better and more prepared and use our speed and use our power and our athleticism and overwhelm the opponent in this phase of the game at all moments. We have a similar kind of thing for when we possess the ball and what some of our principles are, and then when we win it back, and but in this phase of the game, that's what we want to be really effective at. Any questions? I know it's a little bit harder when it's a bigger room. Don't feel bad.
What are your teams slow?
That's not good. Really? Look, it's a fair question, but I did a presentation in Edmonton to the players. And what I showed them in that presentation is I showed them 12 players that I coached when they were young, and then they made transfers to big clubs. And what I went through, and as I showed each one, not why they were a great player, and it wasn't that they were fast or good left foot or good technique. It was work ethic. It was individual work after training. It was sought out video information and feedback, or came in early, was in the regeneration room, really good at nutrition, like all different guys. And guys playing now at Barcelona, Man City, Liverpool, like biggest clubs in the world. And I tried to show how actually what made them good was not their talent, but their desire to improve. And then at the end, I showed all 12 of them together. And I said, why would I put these 12 together? And one of the kids goes, because you coached them. I said, I told you that. And then I pressed the next button, it was 12 different flags. 12 different nationalities: Asian, African, South American, North American, European. I said, excellence is not cultural. Okay? Excellence is human. And I said to the players, don't blame your coaches, your teammates, your parents. Don't blame anybody. These guys had a desire to be the best, right? That's what made them unique. Okay, so a lot of them have certain qualities that put them in the high echelon, but to be the best, and if I put the team together of what we had, that team would maybe win Champions League, right? Like, to be the best, it's about personal excellence and the strive for it. And it's actually something that I'm hard on our national team players on, because I've said too many of them play professional soccer because they like it and they're good at it, and not enough about a pursuit of excellence and maximizing potential. Right? There's a lot of little phrase jokes, but if you see Fonzie take his shirt off, he looks like a machine. If you see Moise Bombito take his shirt, and he's an incredible athlete, he looks like he's 14. Yeah, but that's unacceptable, guys. It's unacceptable. And by the way, it's unacceptable in this room to have these kinds of athletes and not maximize their potential physically of what they can achieve. Because the game is not just about technique and tactics, it's about everything you do. It's about everything you do and how good do you want to be. As coaches, my gosh, I would hope that this is why you're here, right? And then how do you impart that onto your players? And make sure that, and this is, if you act like I've been asked, well, okay, why did Moise Bombito not make it until he was 23? Or why did this player that? All the players in Canada, guys, I have to tell you, they're developing too late. They're developing too late. And it's what I think it is, it's because of the environments we're putting them in. We're not challenging them enough. Right? We're not demanding. I tell you, when I took over the team, I said to them, there was almost no improvements I could make with them in terms of their mentality to work, their commitment to each other, their love of playing for the national team. But the way that I could make massive improvements with them is the demand of what the game requires at the highest level. Physically, mentally, emotionally, intelligence, intellectually, everything. They were not near maximizing their potential. And that's Alphonso Davies, that's Jonathan David, that's all of them, right? We need to be pushing standards more. We need to challenge our, and I'm not trying to professionalize the sport, but I'm trying to maximize potential, right? That has to be what our goal is. It's a long lecture to get to the slow player thing. So there's a kid in front, and he says to me, Coach, everything you're talking about seems like you like fast players. Like, you know, what about me? I'm not, you look at me, I'm like maybe the smallest guy here, and I'm technically good, but I'm not fast. I said, okay, what do you think of Stefan Estacchio? He goes, oh, I like him. I said, yeah, me too. And I said, I'll tell you what, like, of course, I said, I was a good player, but I was slow. Right? I played twice for the national team. I played 14 years career, and I was a good player, but I never really made it to the highest level because I wasn't athletic enough. And so we all will have our ceilings of what our overall potential is. But I feel like I maximized my potential by the fitness, by the intensity at which I played, and the intelligence at which I played. That was the way that I could stay a pro and continue to be a pro. And I said, so even with Stefan Estacchio, who is probably the slowest guy on the team, he's the fastest thinker, he's the best reactor, he's the most intense guy in terms of winning the ball, he's always prepared, like we saw in the video, looking what's next. Like, this way of playing and thinking also prepares the players constantly to be thinking, what's next, I'm quicker, I'm faster, I'm more ready, I'm more intelligent and more prepared than the opponent, right? And then, I don't have to win. I don't have to be faster than this guy if that ball comes loose because I've already anticipated 2 steps ahead.
I think it's a speed over action.
It's the speed of thought, speed of play, speed of reaction. So that's why, again, it's the behaviors, and it's not just the behaviors from training. That's what training is. Enforcing behaviors. And then it's how it fits into the tactical model so that we're constantly more prepared and better positioned than the opponent. That's the goal. The goal is to dominate, for me, every single second of the match. It's impossible. But that's the goal.
So at practices, are you going 100%?
So I went through training methods yesterday, and my way of training is we don't ever go 70%. Okay? So I even said, I showed, when I do rondos, I used to do them maybe 2 minutes long, now I do them a minute. And the reason I said is because I want the players to 100% be in the moment about closing and winning balls and then winning it again and playing and being sharp and then ready to counter press, and I want training to be when you go from a minute to 2 minutes, they start to get tired, and if you're finishing parts of training and players are like this, you think you're building up their fitness, you're breaking them down, right? You want players to have power in training, and it prepares their muscles and their bodies to perform like this. And the other part of that is, from a minute to 2 minutes, they start to get lazy. They lose the ball, like this, and then they catch the ball, and they take a bad touch, and so you're encouraging poor behaviors by the type of training you're running. Instead of enforcing 100% focus, concentration, execution, technical ability, application in the game, everything. That's the goal. The goal is not to train a bunch of lazy athletes. It's to train power machines. And again, that's the game at the highest level. At the grassroots level,
what age would you introduce team conditioning?
I wouldn't introduce it too much because I would be introducing it into training. I would be building it into training. You know, I would, like, we get this question a lot. Like, you know, part of when they're young is you do have to build in, like, at my level, I don't do passing exercises that much. I do occasionally, but I build in more intense rondos that they have to learn to catch the ball and then apply their technique and under space and pressure, or time and pressure. But like, let's say you're doing a 2v1, right? And you're just working on your player's ability to just connect passes, or maybe it's a 3v1 if you're at a lower level, you know, and you're really working on the ability to catch the ball and pass the ball. But I always say, like, okay, when the 3 lose the ball to the 1, like, the 3 should go back and win it, right? And be prepared already to go and win the ball back, and then they can keep playing, and then maybe they score that way, or they achieve the objective that way. But for me, you know, it's about taking some of the principles here of like what it can look like at the higher levels, and then how to implement it with the younger groups, and then still encourage the right behaviors. And thus, in there, the right behaviors will often mean that they have to be prepared physically and mentally to do whatever they need. And then they'll raise their conditioning, and they'll raise their preparation, and they'll raise their intelligence, right? So when I was in New York, that's what I did, is I kind of implemented the whole playing style in the academy. And I had a lot of coaches go, well, we're still working on this. And then I'd go train their teams, and I would make the session come alive, because I could see that they could do that. They could do more than what their coach was even giving them credit for, right? Like, especially young players, you have to believe in the power of their ability to learn. And your job, for me, as a coach, is to put them into pressure situations in training, where you create variables and understanding and regulations and everything to force them to always have to be ready for the next action.
Scoring. How much time do we spend in training? Do you spend in training to score goals through the end moments?
Yeah.
Set pieces?
Yeah, look, I mean, again, it depends, but I'll do around the goal, I'll do things from 5v3s, almost like a deeper block, where then you like I said yesterday, typically when I have the ball and I'm working on possession, I'll create a number situation up. So I'll create a 5v3, I'll create an 11v10, I'll create moments where there can be success, right? And so you're trying to really now build in some confidence and understanding with the timing and the ability to execute. So sometimes I'll do 11v10, sometimes I'll do 7v4, or I'll do 6v, whatever, you know? And sometimes I'll do with mannequins or unopposed. Sometimes we'll build, you know, sometimes we'll start warm up with just guys catching balls in spaces and just putting balls in the corner. One of the things is look, when I see a lot of shooting exercises, I see people doing it outside the 18, right? And like, this is a big thing, like, oh yeah, and then the players catch the ball and they put it in the corner and they feel good about themselves, and okay, the players like this, but the goal, you know, Brentford's strategy, they're like a money ball team. Brentford's strategy is never shoot the ball from outside the 18 and let the opponent shoot the ball outside the 18 as much as they want. Because the expected goals from outside the 18 is less than 0.1, I think it's less than 0.04, right? Shots inside the 6 are like 0.6 and above, right? It's just like the cross from outside or the cross from the half lane. Statistically, where do you want to be taking shots from? Where do you want to be scoring from? So we'll typically, we'll do even at the end of training, at the beginning of training, if we're rotating teams, we'll do shooting exercises, and players need to feel the part about scoring, but important is the behaviors of, if we even do shooting exercises, a lot of times it'll be run in the half lane, cut the ball across, slide in the first post, cut it back to the penalty spot, pass it into the corner, don't shoot it, don't take big swings, like a lot of these little things, like just to increase the opportunities and increase the execution of actually finishing the last play. Set plays we do too, like, you know, we do, and again, I mix that up between opposed, unopposed, smaller numbers. Our team, maybe you guys, we're terrible at heading. Tragic. I don't know why, I don't want you guys just to run heading training, okay? But Canadian players, what I've seen, are terrible at heading. English players like value, yeah, this is like, and even in the game, my son plays in the games in England, and it's heading. That's why Jaden Merritt was so good in England. But as you can see, my teams don't finish so well either, so maybe I'm not doing a good job. Yeah.
So, from a coaching context, how can we best, as you said, maximize the potential of this game model for our grassroots?
Yeah, I mean, it would be the methodology of the training. This would be the So I'm running out of time. I'll do that. I was going to show what I'm going to do in the session later, but you'll see. Okay. This will be the last thing. Maybe. When I did this coaching clinic tour, the one Quebec, they asked me to run a session, so I said okay. So I took the University of Laval team, so mostly 19, 20, 21 year olds. So I started out the session and I said, okay, this is a counter-pressing exercise. Do you guys know what counter-pressing is? Yeah, coach, we know counter-pressing. So they started, they passed the ball after 5 passes, they lost it, and the team that had 8, 7 of them just stood and didn't move. I said, okay, hey, wait. Guys, remember, we're counter-pressing here, so if we lose the ball, go back and win it, right? Again, second time, lose the ball, now maybe 6 guys. Literally couldn't have been standing on their heels more. I said, okay, now I'm the counter-pressing referee. So if you don't counter-press, you go in the middle. I don't care who loses the ball, whatever. If you don't counter-press, you go in the middle. There was one guy, we played for 10 minutes, he went in the middle every freaking time. Right? And so I said, guys, don't, then we went to the next one. I said, okay, guys, don't tell me you know what counter-pressing is, because you don't. Like, you're all standing and watching, right? So then we go to the next exercise, and I kind of had to rotate the group a little bit. It was a simple 4v3, 4v4 plus 3, and I made it, throughout the exercise, I made it a little wider, and then I made it a little longer, and I changed some regulations just to show how to take the same rondo and get different things out of it. And now they got a little bit better, right? It wasn't great, but they got a little bit better, and now the game came a little bit more alive. Then I took them to another exercise that I call ping pong, so they had to kind of play from one side to the other, and then, then I was encouraging it more, and then all of a sudden, like, they'd win balls, there were quick plays, there were combinations playing to the end line, ready to press and counter-press, win the ball back. And so then I called them in before the next exercise, and Mauro Biella was with me, and he was explaining things in French to the coaches. I said, okay, guys, good job, man. I said, what's the French word for dreadful? And they told me the word, and I was like, well, you guys were dreadful at the start. Okay, now it's better. I said, okay, now we have this last exercise, let's see how we do. And the last exercise, they were good. They were good, right? And they were intensive, and they saw things quickly, and they scored a goal, and they were ready for the next one. They were talking. 45 minutes I had those guys, right? So then I called them in. Now they came in, and as a coach, you know when you have a team, because they come in and they're looking at me in their eyes. They're like, they know they did well. They know they improved. They know they pleased the coach, and they felt really good about it. And I said, okay, guys, here's the problem. And here's what I think the problem is a little bit. Look, I don't think just in Canada, I think in world football, okay? And I looked at the 3 coaches and I said, you're partly responsible for this, okay? And I don't mean to be direct, but this is the truth. When I started training today, you guys thought that you were going to be valued by how good you were at your first touch, and how good you take a couple steps, and how good you could make a next pass and complete it, and the beauty of, I said, guys, this is 1/100th of the game. Understanding the intensity, the directness, the verticality, the reactions when you lose it, the reactions when you win it, that at all moments of the game that you're more prepared and you're more alive in the game. This is what will make you better. This is what will make you better, right? So that's, and look, then it takes a coach's eye in a rondo, because if a coach coaches a rondo and he's mostly based on possession, you will do the rondo and mostly focus on what's happening with the ball and possession and how many passes are completed. When I watch a rondo, I'm first thinking about how much can I crank up the defensive against the ball work. The intensity of going after the ball as a group, winning balls, making the last step, and then the reaction when they lose it of counter-pressing. And when you do that, and I showed this yesterday in the session, all of a sudden the with the ball quality has to grow. Because then if you want to be alive in the game, you have to go, we want it, here he comes, gotta play, open, I gotta see things quick, I gotta move again, and then you lose it, and you counter press, and you win it back, and then you win it again, and that's why you need the shorter time frames, and that's why you need the more intensity and the better reactions, and then that's the application of technique, tactic, everything. Right? So that's, if you walk up, so this is a transition, so there's, I think, hopefully some things in there that you find interesting. But if you take one thing from me and what I'm trying to do from the national team, it's create intensity in your training And that will help you develop your players. Okay? Matt's back with his turtleneck, so I think.